Welcome to the Automotive Diagnostic Podcast. We're going to explore ways to sharpen our diagnostic skills, find learning resources, and hear from experts in the automotive field. Hey, what's going on, automotive world? Welcome to another episode of the Automotive Diagnostic Podcast. My name is Sean Tipping, and I'll be your host once again for today's episode. Joining me on the show this week is Buell and Don Smasal. Don and Kyle are mobile diagnostic and programming technicians from different parts of North America. Kyle's up in Canada and Don is down in Texas. And we're going to sit down today and talk all about mobile technician life and a little bit about entrepreneurship as well. Going out on your own, what leads you to that decision, how you get the confidence to make that decision, what types of things do you need to consider, and what's to be considered for this line of work specifically, doing mobile diag and programming. The good, the bad, the challenging, our favorite parts of it, all that stuff we're going to cover. So really great talk with these two guys. We're all kind of in the same place right now as far as our businesses go. So it was pretty cool just to share some stuff and see a lot of the similarities that all of us face. So before we jump into the interview, I want to remind everybody I've recently become a distributor for TopDon scan tools and diagnostic equipment. So you probably heard me talk about them before on the show, seen some stuff out there on Facebook. Maybe you own some of the tooling. It's good stuff. I use it. I like it. Shops local to me were looking for scan tools. Of course, I go into the shops all the time and they're like, hey, what scan tool do I buy? And I say, buy all of them. But when they're looking for general tool that's going to have a lot of coverage and do all the basic functions that they're looking for, I think price-wise, this is a really good option. Of course, they have different levels of scan tools and stuff beyond scan tools too, right? They've got battery voltage maintainers, they've got ADAS, targeting equipment, remote diagnostic and programming capabilities, lots of really cool stuff, but some really good scan tools too. So if you're interested in getting one of these tools, reach out to me through either Facebook Messenger or my email, which is in the show notes, and I will get you the podcast discount on any of the TopDon stuff that you're looking at. Happy to help you out there. So with all that out of the way, let's jump into the episode.
That's all we do as programmers is download things.
Oh yeah.
So there was a tech at a shop today giving me shit because I wasn't dirty enough. Because he's busting engines and trannies and stuff out. He's like, man, you stay really clean doing what you're doing. I was like, yeah, pressing buttons. I usually don't get too dirty.
It's a beautiful thing. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing when everything works.
Yeah,
man, man, when everything flows, it's like, wow.
It's like my hand.
I can do this every day, but the days that it doesn't go right, it's like, Jesus. You question, like, what, should I be out here? Like, what am I doing?
Who gave me permission to do this?
Well, whose quote is it? Programming is easy until it isn't, and that's the truth.
Yeah, that's very true. Very, very true.
Well, officially, good evening, gentlemen. Thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
we've got Kyle and Don here, and I'll be honest, I don't know for sure how to pronounce either of your last names. I can guess, but why don't we start with that? Because that way we know who we're talking to.
Go ahead, Kyle.
My name is Kyle Buell from Ottawa, Ontario.
And then I'm Don Smasal, and I'm in San Antonio, Texas.
Okay. All right. I would have been pretty close if I guessed then. That's good. I've talked to both of you before over Facebook. I don't believe we've met in person, but maybe at a training event.
No.
Okay.
Nope.
Cool. Well, hopefully in the near future then. We were talking about ASTE. I'm planning on going to that one in North Carolina. That was a good event last year. So you guys wanted to come on, and we were going to talk about the mobile technician life. We all do mobile well, actually, I'll ask if you guys do diagnostics or not, but mobile programming in different areas of the country or countries. And I definitely think it'd be an interesting conversation to have, just the different challenges that we're up against and the good and the bad of what we do. It's an interesting job. I will definitely say that.
Oh yeah.
Yep, 100%.
Can be very challenging and very rewarding, but I like it. I do. It's really definitely something I'm happy I'm doing. I thought we could start off with having each of you explain how you got into doing, mobile programming, and what made you make that jump to doing that from whatever you were doing before. So you could start off with either one of you.
So I used to work at a Toyota dealer. Before Toyota dealer, I was working transit, just kind of like Corey. You're working for the city.
Mm-hmm.
And then before that, I was in dealers. So I went from dealers to fleet, and then back to dealers. Bulk of my experience overall is going to be in fleet. But when I was in the dealer, and I mean, it's redundant. It's the same thing. Especially when you work for one car line, it's uh, same problems you see, same components need to be replaced. Not very often do you get something that's out of the set where you have to really diagnose and get deep down in testing. Obviously, when I was in the shop, that's what I like to do. I mean, who doesn't like the challenge, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's what we all want to do. At least if you're a diagnostic tech, right? You want those hard problems. Um, and then honestly, we have a buddy of ours, a mutual friend, Tony. He went mobile. One day he just sent out in the group chat. He just sent a picture of his toolbox on a U-Haul trailer,
Yep.
and he's like, "Yeah, I quit." And we're like, "Dude, what? What do you mean you quit?" He's like, "Yeah, I quit." He's like, "I'm going mobile." And we're like, "Mobile? What do you mean?" And yeah, he explained it to us. He's like, "Yeah, I'm going to do mobile programming, diag." He's the only provider for his household, and he's got 4 kids, and he just up and quit.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I remember looking at that text message, and I was standing there in my toolbox at the shop, and I'm like, this man is doing it. He's got 4 kids. I was like, I got no excuse. Like, I got none. Like, I literally came home that afternoon, and spoke to my wife, and I was like, hey, I was like, Dad, I'm doing something. Because the idea of working for myself was already there. I just didn't know what exactly. And I have, like I said, a bulk of my experience comes from the fleet, and I did a lot of diesel and CNG, and it's big machinery, right? Bigger vehicles. So I was cool with doing roadside service, to be quite honest with you. Like, I mean, I did caging brakes and fixing airlines on,
All
Class
right.
8 trucks and stuff like that. It's just something I was already comfortable in. I already knew, I figured I'm going to go that route. There's always going to be a demand for, heavy duty. Um, and I got linked in with PJ um, through another guy named Nolan. They got me into the Toyota group, and then I met PJ, met Isaac, and through time, the programming thing came up, and it was like, oh wow, okay. And then we had our buddy Tony, uh, that was getting going. So it's kind of a combination to see everybody, seeing this is the direction everyone's going. So I was like, okay, well, let me take a look
Yeah.
at it and see. And then next thing you know, it was like put in my 2 weeks one day, and then 2 weeks
Yeah.
later, I'm knocking on doors, handing cards out, like, hey, I can do programming. Don't really don't really know if I can do it, but yeah, I'll watch L1. Like, I was watching everything and anything on Keith Perkins' channel. I was watching it all, reading anything I could, all the Facebook groups, reading problems. Like, well, what do you mean you're getting this E4 or 4399 on GM? What does that mean? Like, I have no idea. So those little things, and then obviously with time and experience, you grow your skill set. You start knowing what you're looking at.
How long have you
So
been doing it, or when was that when you went on your own?
I'm about to hit a year actually.
Okay.
Next couple weeks actually. Since the 13th is when I went full time on my own.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How long did it take you in that? I mean, because that's still you're still pretty young as a business. How long did it take you to get a client base?
Luckily, I worked before there. Before I left there, I worked at another Toyota dealer. So when I left, I had the used car departments use me quite a bit.
Oh, okay.
Because even when I was there at the dealers, I would do a lot of the stuff for them because they didn't want to, their techs didn't want to do it or whatever. So I started off with 2 dealerships, used car departments, and that really kept me afloat starting out. And then as I, gained accounts, and it just came honestly, man, word of mouth and just getting out there and just shaking hands, man, meeting people and just offering services. And then, of course, delivering the results, right? You fix a car, you figure out the problem, you get it out of their hair.
Yep.
Once you
That's
do that, I mean,
the biggest marketing you can do is going in and doing that job, doing it well, getting rid of their problems, or making their lives easier. And then they're going to tell everybody else about you. Like, hey, this guy can do it. This guy will take care of your challenge it or whatever, make your life easy. And then you get more and more shops on top of it.
Yeah. And of course, there was the not knowing ever running business before. I had no idea what I was doing. So I would mention it in certain group chats, and there was the big name icons in our industry, right? That would chew me out, like, "Yeah, you're giving it away, dude. What are you doing?" Kind of virtually slapping me, on the back of the head, and I'm like, "Okay, I get it. Like, okay, I need a charge. Like, how do you charge?" But yeah, once that ball got rolling, it just kind of just took off, man. I mean,
That's
I'm
awesome.
also in a pretty decently sized city, so there's 1.6 in San Antonio, so
Okay.
there's a lot of repair shops here, and then that's not counting the outskirts, little towns and stuff. So
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. How about you, Kyle?
So I come from mainly an independent background. I started out at a Ford dealer, worked there for about a year, and then I had a good friend from a church I was attending bring me into the independent world under a Napa Auto Pro, and I worked there until I got my license. So little different up here than it is down the States. Here, you can get a 2-year program in school and then serve your hours, get your hours and then go write your test. And then, or what I did is the more common route where you get a job at a shop, then you get registered as an apprentice, and you go to school for 2 months of the year for 3 years. Then you go and write your license, and then once you're licensed, that's it. There's no like separate tests or ASEs or L1s or whichever they are.
Okay.
So I got my Red Seal certificate, which means that I can go to any province in Canada and I don't need to rewrite. I could just jump ship and all that stuff. But so I started just mainly independent, worked at the same shop off and on in between, getting married and going traveling internationally for a while, and got my license, and then basically became like the diagnostic tech. But what was interesting was like the independent shop I was at had I'd say he was a good business owner, but also he was a good tech in that he wasn't just like brakes, tires, and suspension. He took on the cars that had electrical issues, had drivability concerns, and I knew myself, when I was younger, in that I knew I liked a challenge, so I would always be grabbing those. I'd always say, hey, put me on the one with a misfire, and so that I got a little bit of a push from my employer in that regard, and things just took off, and then I started seeking out my own training, even just watching YouTube and doing all the basic scanner dinner stuff, and
Right.
basically became the lead diag tech, and then eventually it started getting a little bit, I felt like I hit a plateau in that there wasn't anything left for me at this shop. I definitely felt like I peaked as far as what the shop and the area could offer me.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I hovered around that spot for probably, I'd say, a good year. And eventually, it just, things like it, not that it catches up with you, but your attitude starts to change a little bit, and your employer is going to take notice, or your other employees are going to take, or the other employees would take notice, and things just, I wouldn't say ended in a bad way. They just got a little like, okay, yeah, you've run your course,
Mm-hmm.
and yep, that's pretty well how that went. Yeah, I didn't. We didn't leave on bad terms. He still called me to go out and do some programming and whatnot. But
Okay.
coming out of that, I felt like I had nothing to lose. Essentially, like ultimately, the worst thing that would happen was that I had to go work in another shop, which is, for any technician, is easily doable. People move shops all the time. So
Mm-hmm.
a little while into, like, I'd say probably, like, I'd already been in a group chat with a bunch of other techs, over the last few years. And then our buddy Tony was in there, and that was just it. We both saw the picture, and I'd started questioning, like, is it going to be my turn eventually? And then
Yeah.
Don left, and then I was like, oh man, yeah, I'm next. I was like, I was just waiting and waiting. So it took like the last 6 months, or what happened to actually be the last 6 months, buying equipment and, asking questions and not knowing a thing about business. Like, what do I need to do for my area, and get up, and, how is it all going to work, essentially?
Yeah.
And,
Right.
yeah, I went, I quit my job. Well, the last day was December 23rd, 2021. And first day of Volta, my business here in Ottawa, was January 1st, 2022.
Oh, that's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah. So, but the city of Ottawa isn't that big. Well, there's a million people, but as far as like inner city, it's a relatively small city with a lot of outer little communities. But
Mm-hmm.
the first thing I noticed, I made business cards, and I got like my little spiel together, a little formula of what I could do. And a lot of shops are like, they hadn't heard of this kind of service before. And yeah, so then I started thinking, I'm like, okay, this could take off. It was the first 3 months were kind of dry, and just a lot about proving yourself and delivering results was the big thing. Like, people just look at me as some random guy coming in off the street with a business card.
Right.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it was cold up here. Obviously, it snows and everything. So, huddled in my Carhartt jacket, I look like everyone else. There's nothing that says, you're the guy, kind of thing. So,
Sure.
yeah, that was the start of it, essentially. And yeah.
That's awesome. Well, yeah, it's fun to hear too. That both you guys are like you're just in the infancy of your business too. I mean, I am too. And it's kind of the exciting part of it too, because you're still figuring everything out. Not everything, but a lot of things are new and exciting and challenging. And I think that's the part about it I like the most is I don't really know what tomorrow's going to bring me.
Yeah.
Whether it be on the car side or the business side.
And it's funny you say that, because when Kyle was getting mobile and like going, he'd finish the job and I'd be like, well, how much did you charge? And then he'd be like, well, and then I'd be like, no, more.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want him to make the mistakes I was making, So,
Mm-hmm.
because like
Like,
I was,
how many opportunities,
cause, I mean,
I'm sorry.
realistically, like as a technician, right? You show up and you got this problem. They tell you whatever. Okay, car's not starting, whatever. Then you go and you start diagnosing. Then you find out, well, man, the fuse is missing. Like the ignition run circuit fuse is missing. Like it's just a fuse. Like no big deal. You pop in the fuse. Naturally, you'd be like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's not a big deal. It's a fuse. But like, it's like, no, man. From a business standpoint, it's like, okay, you got to justify your cost and fuel, time, your schedule. I mean, if it was that easy, the shop would have taken care of it. But obviously, apparently wasn't easy for them. So you need to stick to your guns and
Yep.
charge appropriately because you're just valuing a service. And it took me a while to
Yeah.
learn that. So like when like Kyle started going mobile, I was
Same
like,
here.
dude, no, like you need to charge for that. Like, no,
Yep.
like,
Yeah.
like don't make the mistakes I made, man.
See, that right there is like that. I had a very unique start because I saw Antonio go, I saw Don go, and I saw they had a formula, and it's like, they were just so open arms about like business, and like, I had bad days, and it's like, what am I even doing? And like I see them, and they're successful, and some days they're not successful, and it wasn't necessarily comforting. It was just like, no, we're all in this, and we're all doing the same thing, and there's honestly, I can't think of it. I can't say, well, sorry. Now I can't say that there's nothing more exciting about that kind of like little community or group chat we got, it's because we're in our infancy, let's say within the first year, it's just like, just got to roll with it. You got to have that support and
Oh yeah.
a little network and like, people close to you. Like my wife was very supportive. She's like, yep, just first year, just go for it. We'll be all right.
Yep, same.
That's huge too, is to have that support network both in your personal life and in the professional side of things too. When I started doing the mobile thing, I was kind of solo on my own, as far as I was in some Facebook groups and I knew some people, and I'd reach out when I was really in a pinch, but I was trying to do it myself. And once I got connected with some other networks, talking to people, I mean, how I've met you guys and various others, it was like not my knowledge, but my confidence to take something on expanded like tenfold, because I knew, okay, maybe I'm going to get in. Okay, I'm probably going to get in over my head, but I've got some people that I could reach out to
100%.
once I'm there. And that, I'll tell you what, as a independent business owner, that's huge to have. I don't care what industry you're in, you should find some sort of group of people like that. Even if you're all newbies, right? It helps to have somebody who's really smart and really been doing this forever. But even if everybody's a year in and you've got, 10 guys together, 10 heads is going to figure out a lot more than one. And I wish I would have, sought that out sooner than I did, because it's so huge to have that.
And it's funny you say it just like that, because in our immediate group, we have Kyle. He's the electrical and diagnostic guy. He's that guy. You have an electrical problem, you're calling Kyle, and you're like, hey, like I have current here, I don't have current there. I did a voltage drop here. What I don't understand. Is it a module? Yes or no? And he's just like, okay, tell me what you have. And then you tell him again, and he's like, okay, well, check this, check that, check this. Okay, cool. And then we got another buddy. He's a key guy. He was also a dealer tech, and he went mobile shortly after Kyle went mobile. And I met him through the Toyota groups. And he is the key guy. Like he does the BMW cast, the Mercedes. Like he does all of it, man. He's in it.
In the back of his van, just
like
rolling down the highway.
He's that guy that does the lead sheet, does the decoding. He does anything key, MO, he's the guy. So, we all have our strong points and we all help each other. And it's accelerated all of us, honestly. More than I think you can definitely take on your own. The network it's absolutely needed. For sure. Hands down.
What I think has been interesting, and I don't know, there might be a bias because like I said, I'm getting connected with more and more of these people, but I feel like more and more people are going this direction, going to work for themselves, specializing in something, going solo, not working for a shop or dealership or whatever, whether it be keys or diag or programming or ADAS or whatever. All these
people that are doing this are top level, right? Super, super smart people, very sharp, very dedicated, passionate workers, right? The one thing I thought that was interesting over the last few years is that the automotive industry as a shop, as a dealership, just can't hang on to the top level people. And I'm a little scared about that, right? Like the best of the best are not working in, I mean, we're in the industry, but we're not working for somebody in the industry. We're all going to work for ourselves. It's very, very strange. Like you don't see that in other areas. The top of the top, I don't know, if you're some sort of computer programmer, you're probably going to go work for Microsoft or Google or something like that, right? If you're the best of the best. But the best of the best for us are going out to do stuff for their own, on their own.
See,
it's very strange how that's working.
Ironic you say that too, because I think a lot of that comes from, I mean, several things, right? You got flat rate, that is something as a whole rabbit hole in its own. But also you look at what is really beneficial for a shop as far as business goes, right? I mean, they can't afford to invest in somebody to do EPROM and programming and get deep in the weeds and some stuff. But as opposed to, if you're an individual like us, I mean, you can easily invest yourself, your spare time or whatever time you have in it, and make it very profitable for yourself, with those aftermarket solutions.
Like you will be up till 3 or 4 a.m. That's a given. And then show up the next day like, here you go. And, it's like it was nothing.
I also think so also is like certifications. Like I know Kyle mentioned up there that, they have their Red Seal certification. And like, here in the US, there is no standard really. Like, I mean, yeah, we have ASE, which is great. But that is also, you've met the bare minimum requirements to be, such title. Personally, I would love to see our industry be backed by a certification. I mean, any other trade, there's a standard. There's a benchmark test, or there's a benchmark skill level that you need to be.
Yeah.
Like, why can't the auto field be like that? I don't know. Maybe that's just me, but
it was said to cut hair in Minnesota, you have to have a license with the state. And getting that license doesn't mean that you're the best hairstylist around, but you have to have that if you want to cut hair. But you could literally be some guy walks in off the street, you hand him a wrench, and he's doing tie rods and ball joints and stuff that can kill somebody. I've always found that to be strange too. Now, who decides the licensing procedure and how to that? That's a whole mess that I don't know the answers for. But it would be nice just to raise, at least set a bar for the people coming in, right? Like you got to meet this standard if you want to work on these crazy complex computers with wheels. But yeah, I don't know if it'll happen, because actually there is isn't Michigan, I think, have some sort of licensing for technicians or something. I'm not 100% on that, but
maybe they've adopted sort of the
because I know plenty of techs that don't have any certifications, and they're genius. They can fix a car. They can fix a car. And then I know guys that are certified that can't. But then I also see guys that, they're doing the technical end of things, and they have absolutely no experience in a shop at all. Like they've never worked in a repair shop, but they're doing mobile and they're doing diag and programming, and they're, fairly successful. And I guess that not rubs me wrong, but it's one of those things that's like, okay, dude, like this is the field that, obviously some of us have invested in and put your time in. I would just like to see the field be at a standard. Like, hey, this is what everybody needs to come to. This is just what it is. Like,
you add some professionalism.
Like you have to work in the shop, and you have to bust tires, and you have to do the oil changes, and hey, you have to earn your stripes, man. I mean, you just have to. It's just the way it has to. I mean, in my opinion, I think the end would weed out a lot of people. I would believe, like, hey, you know what? You have X amount of months after you take this test to become this rank, the status, whatever. If you don't, okay, your license is suspended for however long or whatever. Just a standard. We just need a standard, I think, in this field.
Yep. You got to come up to the north, and you got to do brakes and ball joints and steering on
Whoa,
old, rusty pieces
hold
of
on now.
crap for a
Hold
year
on,
Oh,
hold
yeah.
before
on
you
now.
can
I'm
be
in
a
the south.
technician.
Hold on, I'm in the
Come
south.
on. You can.
You guys
I
can
got an
keep all
extra
that.
room. You can.
We're good with that.
You can board. I'll feed you. I'll board you. You know, come on up here for a while.
Yeah, that's like Kyle
You
finds
get good
broken
with an
wires with
acetylene torque.
corrosion all the time, and it's like I never see that here in the
Yeah,
south. Rarely,
I'd like.
rarely.
I
Like man,
suppose.
I rarely
Yeah.
see that.
Well, like just the other day. Yeah, just the other day I had it was a 2018 Ford Transit, and I had loaded power on the tops of the fuse, right? The two little bits. You test each leg.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, all right, great. Yeah, I got loaded power up there. Fuse must be good. And I'm testing the circuit coming out of the fuse block, and I only had like 5 volts. So I'm like, okay, you know, the issue is underneath. And I'm just like, 5 volts, it's supposed to have 12, it's got to be corrosion. I check underneath because the circuit just had a little wire that went from the fuse leg over to the connector. You know, very simple. And lifted it up, I didn't see a thing. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
huh, okay. So then I started like just doing the old wiggle test, you know, on the fuse leg, and I had 12 volts, 5 volts, 12 volts, 5 volts. The corrosion was in the fuse leg terminal, you know? So
Okay.
I pulled the fuse out, and the fuse had actually melted on that side because of the voltage drop. It would just get hot, and then it would start melting.
Sure.
But when you split the fuse, the top was good, the bottom wasn't. It's just like
Sure.
simple little corrosion thing where it's like, I checked the fuse, it was good. There's no reason for me to pull the fuse out. I'm going to move on. Whereas if I had just pulled the fuse there.
And I'm gonna be honest. I'd run into something like that, and I'd be like, what? Like, because I don't see that down here in the south. You know, like we just don't see. We don't ever run into that.
Yeah.
So I'd be like, huh? Like that would be one I would call him and
So,
be like, hey, why? Even though, like, you know, after he explains it, I mean, you could sit and think about it and be like, yeah, it's a simple circuit, yeah, right there, of course. But the fact that I never ever
Circuit
see something like
diagram.
that, I'd be like, what? What do you mean?
I don't know.
so I had an Acura just today actually that had a wheel speed circuit code for one of the back wheels, and it was open circuit code set as soon as you turn the key on. So I'm just looking for a wire. The tech already replaced the sensor, and so I eliminated it down to the plug that comes out near the trunk area and then down to the wheel. I know there's an opening in there somewhere. I just got to find it. And there's no other like connectors besides the sensor. And I don't want to start poking stuff underneath the vehicle unless I absolutely have to. So I'm doing a visual on this thing. I'm like, it's not that long of a wire. If it's broken, I should be able to get eyes on it somewhere. And I'm looking, and I can't find it. Well, finally, I had looked at this about, I don't know, 5-6 times, like directly at it. Well, the wire was like a light green color. Well, so's the corrosion, too. It was the exact same color as the corrosion. So I looked right at the corroded part. It had been pinched, and it's growing green stuff out of it. It was like the same as the insulation. So I missed out. Like, oh, okay, there it is.
Oh, man. I have not had one of those. I hope to not have one of those.
It's the green pixie dust colored wire that got me on that one for a little while. But
Oh, man.
what do you guys think is the most challenging part about doing the mobile stuff?
Man,
You go first, Don.
when
I got to think about it.
when you need to make the business decision, right? Do you need to charge for this, or is this something that you should be charging for, or is this something that's part of building the relationship with the customer, right? Because ultimately, in my opinion at least, the relationship means much more than the dollar. Because if the relationship's not there, they're not going to call you. It's that simple. I mean, you build.
And if it is, you can make a
And then
lot
not
of
only
money
that,
from
but then
that shop.
Yeah.
they pass your
Long
name like,
period of
yeah, this
time.
guy's real great. You know, he's real cool. He'll help you out, whatever. So it's one of those. I'm still learning how to figure out, like, is this a time? Do I give him this one, or do I charge for this one? You know, is it, you know, and I always tell myself, like, okay, was this issue causing me to be late to another appointment to where I could have billed for? You know, it's one of those. It's give and take. I think that is the hardest part, man. If anybody could teach me anything, I would love for somebody to teach me, like, hey man, this is how you differentiate the two, and this is what you do. Like, cool. Because that to me is the hardest part, is when do you apply the businessman hat, right? When you say, like, no, this is what we're gonna do. This is the charge. Sorry, this is what's owed for service.
Mm-hmm.
Learning how to do that end of the business, I think, is the hardest part.
Yeah, because it helping somebody out in the right circumstance, like I say, that gets you in, and then they use for you for all sorts of stuff that they do pay you for, and they recommend you to all other kinds of people, and that's a fantastic move, right?
Oh, yeah.
I'll sacrifice an hour of my time for a great account or 3 more accounts any day of the week. Anybody would, but you do it in the wrong position, and now they're going to try to get more and more, or to the wrong person, right? They're going to try to, it's that old book, you give a mouse a cookie type of deal. And then all of a sudden they're wanting everything. Oh, well, let's cut back on this and that. And then,
but yeah,
that
is the best
exactly. Yeah. So that's the tricky is that when do you do that? How do you do that?
What I feel I can add to that is 2 points. The first point is, like, I'm a diagnostic technician at heart. Like, those are my roots, right? So it's like I'm encountering an issue, I'm an hour in. It's like I don't want it to defeat me, and I'm not going to let it defeat me. So it's like I've put mind power into it and time and struggled, and you're going to struggle. And what that leads to is, like, let's say you're working with, in most cases, another businessman, and I've heard it before many times, is like, well, this shop stays open, like, there's no reason for me to close my doors in that sense too. It's like, they're still making money. They're going to do their thing. It's like, there needs to be, like, a respect for yourself and the time that you put in, but also a respect for that business backbone kind of thing. And when I feel sometimes, like, what I struggle with is I put too much of my roots into it, and that, I'll often say, the first thing I will say is, oh, I can't charge you for this. I haven't delivered anything. I haven't given you anything. But really, it's like you've put a lot of time in that, and that time took years to count for it as experience. And that was mistakes you've made, and just knowledge you picked up from other techs. So I really I struggle with that. I don't want to say it as, like, respect for myself, but what's the first thing that comes to my head as far as like, if I think of myself in that situation, and it's like, okay, I've got an hour in it. That's all they've approved for. I've got nothing to prove, nothing to say for it, and that this has been the thing that, like, Don, I think, saw very early on. And that's what it's interesting when you hear it from somebody else, right? And then when you try to apply that same pep talk to yourself in front of the business guy that you're trying to, I just spent an hour into it. It's like, I can't do that. There's that weird thing. It's like, I can get the pep talk, but I can't give myself the pep talk.
See, and then, like, where I say that is, like, you spent the hour in it, and you may not have given him the results, but you can at least go ahead and tell him, hey, well, it ain't this, and this. I can tell you that right now. I mean, so
yeah,
don't shoot your parts that way, because it ain't gonna fix it. I mean, honestly, but that has to be something of value. You have to look at that too, as a business sense. And it is hard to know when, is this of value? Like, was this, the testing I did, was that something you guys were capable of? Like, that's often what comes into my head. And it's like, okay, do I bill you? Do I not? So that's where I look at that in that sense. Yeah. It's like when he'll tell me something, I'm like, hey, bro, well, you know for a fact that it's not any of those things that you checked. Like, it ain't that. That's a value. That's value for something, somebody, because you save somebody time.
Yeah, and I think, like you say, there are certain people and certain business owners out there that will actually respect you more if you're charging for your time, saying, hey, this is what my hour is worth, and here's what I'm going to do. And maybe in some cases I don't come up with an answer, but this is what my time is worth, and this is what you're going to agree to pay. And I know I'm thinking of specific shop owners right now that I think they would lose respect for me if I wasn't doing that. Right. And that's all dependent on the person you're dealing with and stuff. On the side where something maybe is really simple and straightforward, maybe you've seen the problem before. Maybe it's just, hey, you're good at that particular thing and you feel bad about charging for it. I had that same feeling too. But what I've come to find out too is that so many of these shops, they're so busy and they are happy to pay for the convenience of getting that thing solved quickly, regardless of whether they could have done it or whether it was easy with quotations. They're getting their car or their problem resolved. They're happy to hand out money. I went to a shop this morning. The service manager there is like, I know my guys can figure out these cars. We don't have time. And it was timing belt, timing chain, and some VVT solenoids. I mean, just basic stuff. But they're like, we don't have the guys. We don't have the time. We're happy to pay you just to tell us what's wrong with these things. Like, all right, cool.
It's a little, it's a little bit of a relationship too in that sense too. Is like they bring you in, it's like you've been there a few times, you've delivered good results. It's like they're going to make money off the parts that you told them to replace, obviously too.
Yep.
So it's always a roundabout thing. It's just whether at that point it's like their reputation, firing parts of cars, customers unhappy and all that stuff. So it's like bring you in, get it right, at least, maybe a couple hours more than they'd like to pay. But come out with something at the end. I think a good question that leads to is knowing what shops to go to when you're first starting out. Because in my experience, new idea, new concept for my area, I was like, I'm just going to go to all of them, and I went to the few smaller hole in the wall ones that like the parking lots are full. It's like, okay, that's a good sign of something. They got good Google reviews, lots of them, hundreds. It doesn't always turn out to be the best decision, but anytime you walk into a shop, you learn something. You learn how to talk to a new character. You get a feel of what they're capable of, if they understand the lingo you're throwing at them, and like how that will benefit them if you see the hamster wheel spinning in their head. That was a very interesting experience for me, at least up here.
Yeah. Oh, same here. There are very, very different mindsets to people who work in this industry. And some people recognize it as like, hey, this is a service I can make money off of. And other people see it as an expense. And those people that see it as an expense,
sorry,
what
you're not my customer.
Like,
sorry.
It's probably not going to work
It's
out.
not their money.
It's not.
Exactly. I mean, unless they're screwing up the cars, which does happen. But what's your guys' favorite part about doing this then?
I can say no to a lot of things if I want to. I'm dumb enough to say yes to a lot of things. I'm like, yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. I can do that. Yeah.
I can move your component protection.
Yeah. I'm going to take the BCM and bring it back to life. Sure. I have no idea. And in my head, I'm like, okay. Yeah, so then you come home and you start doing research and looking, and you reach out to the real smart guys, and you're like, hey, it's me, I'm back. Ready to ask you more questions. Luckily, I haven't pressed them enough to they haven't kicked me away. Very grateful for them. Very, very, very grateful for them. You see these guys doing some wicked stuff, and then you're like, wow. Just total mind blown.
Yeah, the level of intelligence of some people that I've met in the last few years is ridiculous. I feel like a kindergartner talking to some of these people. It's crazy.
Just sit in front of them.
But I love it. I'm like, I want to surround myself with more people like that.
Joey, You know, like that guy is like, yeah, how
Oh
do you
man,
retain all this information? Like one minute
Ridiculous.
he's telling,
his
yeah, one
nickname
minute he's
is
talking
Dad.
about 6.6 Duramax, and then in the next sentence we're talking about BMW 3 Series combi clusters, and it's like, hey, how do you retain all this information? I don't understand.
It's just, yeah, boom, boom, boom. I've got this really
Yeah,
intricate answer to
yeah,
your
exactly.
obscure
Yeah, and
question.
I'm
No
like,
Yeah,
problem.
I'm over here like reading, like, well, what did you mean by this? Like, like he's like, oh yeah, he's like,
how
yeah,
does it do
when
that?
the triple E gets erased and it takes the, takes it from the D flash, and I'm over there like pulling up EPROMicon notes, like, what is he saying? Like, I, I, I took EPROM class, but like, I don't know, what it was over here, like, okay, sure, Joey. uh,
I think to add to the favorite thing, um, it's real fun running your own show. I'm turning 30 this year, and I kind of told myself that I wanted to do something like that before 30. So I'm happy I got to check that box off. But when I sit back and I think about like what it could be and where I'm at, it's just like there's nothing more exciting about building your own little thing,
Hmm.
and it'll eventually get big. There is obviously a lot of struggle. You're going to have ups and downs. You're going to take a few L's, and but I think what's more fun, I think, just on a personal level, is just having a good group of guys that kind of in the same area, and we're all moving up together. I find, at least in my experience as a tech, as an apprentice, like moving up in the trade, that's what I was missing. You know, all the dudes in the shop are older than me. I'd ask questions. They'd be like, "Oh yeah, just do this, blah blah blah." And then there wasn't any like it wasn't a good mix, at least for me.
Okay.
So that's what's cool about it.
Yeah. Being able to call the shots is huge. It comes with a trade off of, yeah, you've got a lot of responsibility, a lot of decisions to make that maybe you don't know what the right answer is, and a lot of work to do. Like you say, sometimes it is 2, 3 in the morning poking around on that module that you said you'd figure out, or researching this car that this Highlander or whatever that you don't understand the system for, and that can become overwhelming. But to be the one making the shots, it is something that has always appealed to me. I didn't mind working for someone if I felt like they had a good grasp on their business or the business they were managing, and were doing things correctly. But that obviously doesn't always happen. And then when I'm working for somebody that I question that, like, do they really know what they're doing here? Do they have a goal, a plan? What's going on? And you see the small decisions that they make throughout the day, and you're like, I think I could at least do that. He's screwing up, but I could do that, right? And then I lose confidence in working for that person. And for me, it was very far and few in between, finding people to work with or for that. I was like, okay, that dude knows it.
Yeah,
And like I mentioned earlier, going back to what I said, I've met more people, way more people, doing things for themselves that are on that level. They'd be like, I'd go work for you. Yeah, I'd go work for Joey, right? For sure, 100%. Like, that dude knows what's going
oh
on.
yeah,
He can tell me what to do. But yeah, being your own boss comes with a price, but it is very, very rewarding if you're willing to put in the work.
mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's going to be, like you say, there's going to be some tough times. There's going to be some struggle. And I'm still figuring all that out myself. Actually, so I've told a number of people, I haven't actually like put it out on the podcast yet, but I'm not going back to teaching in the fall. I'm actually just going to be full-time mobile from here on out. I made that decision earlier this spring.
Oh
I
man,
was doing way too much work, working 2 careers, and the mobile thing was just exploding. And I'm like, I have to pick a path. I tried, I'll just do both. I'll do both. And no, I was half-assing both things. And so after a lot of decision making. And I just was kind of like, well, this is the route I'm going to go. I'm going to take a risk. I'm going to go for it. We'll see what happens. And, I'm 1 month like officially into being, fully self-employed, and it's going pretty good.
Oh, nice. So. Cool. Nice, man. Yeah. Congrats. That's a huge decision to make.
Thank you. It's state benefits and stuff like that are definitely, that's a cushy job to have 100%. I did love teaching. Don't get me wrong. This is, I don't know. This is almost like a little bit more like challenging or scary. So I'm like, I think that's what I should go for.
Hey, yeah.
Cause,
there's something enticing about it.
Worst case scenario. I don't know. Personally, I'm a big risk taker though too. I gamble and I'm a gambler. It's bad to say that, man, but it's like I got $5 and I'm at the casino. Like I'm spending the $5. Like I'm gonna send it. Like I just, because at the end of the day, man, what do you really have to lose? Like if you came in with nothing, you're gonna leave with nothing.
Yeah.
Yep.
If this doesn't work out, cool. That my business didn't work out. Guess what? My toolbox has wheels. Like I'll just roll it back in the shop. Like not a big deal.
Mm-hmm. And think of all the stuff that you and I and all of us are learning along the way too.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't work out. I got options, right? I got other stuff that I can apply these skills to.
I've met a lot of shop owners and, made some good relationships with people that I know now. Dude. And I know now, like, okay, this is a good shop. I'm going there.
Yeah.
Like they got AC and their management knows what's going on. I'm going there. It's hot down here.
Any one of us could have a job within 45 minutes of now. Even at 8 o'clock at night, you could text them. I know all of you could text some shop owners or managers and be like, hey, can I have a job? And you'd be like, yep, sign up.
Do a conference call with all the shops and be like, all right, let the bidding begin. Please make it worthwhile here. Because I've been an employee before and
But see, it's funny he says that because too, I don't know if I could go back to working for somebody. Now knowing
it'd be tough.
Knowing like how profitable you can be and what you can, how much revenue you can just bring in your household, right? Like your income is, as much as you want to hustle, it's really up to you. So going back to a limited paycheck is just, I don't know. Yeah. It'd be hard. To adjust the lifestyle.
Yeah, the monotonous side of it too, where I think you were mentioning, Kyle, where it's like you kind of hit your limit as far as growth in a single shop because you're only going to see so much challenging, difficult new stuff in one shop, even if it's independent. Whereas the way that we're doing it, we're getting that every day. You're getting the weird, challenging, crazy stuff every single day because you're just netting it from all of the businesses to you. And I don't know how you could find that in an individual shop. That would be a very unique setup to make that happen. Something like Jim Morton had back in the day, but that's not around. I don't know of a place like that around here.
It's almost like you have to take your clientele, like shop wise, and just amalgamate it. It's all one, and you can't do that because people are going to take their cars wherever they want. Trade shops, up here, Canadian Tire is always going to be around, like AutoZone down there. Get your free scan, and it's just like it. Yeah, I don't know if it's like there's just a difference between consumer-based knowledge and like actual technician, business owner knowledge. Like, because our part of the job doesn't involve the actual owner of the vehicle. It's all we see is just vehicles when you think of it. So it's almost like we don't exist in a sense, and we put on a good face for a lot of shops, which is great. It helps build reputation, and you want to see those who help succeed. But it's just that it's like I think it's almost impossible just to have one localized shop that would be everything, unless there are a few techs we could probably name who, like, I'm going to bring back Joey again. Yeah, there's like he's got it. And I'd say it just seems rare.
Yeah, it 100% is not the norm. There's an average shop, and there's an average level and amount of business that they do, and I mean that's what we see every single day. That's what's out there. This is the challenges they face. This is their limitation of their skills, and that's going to be 95% of shops out there. So we're a good fit for that. That's why this actually does make sense right now, doing what we're doing. There's a definite need for it, and we're taking advantage at the moment. And that's it. That's all there is to it.
Yeah.
This podcast stuff's fun.
Yeah, this is a good time. I mean, honestly, the coolest thing, or one of the coolest things about doing the podcast, honestly, is just to get to talk to cool people in this industry. And like, even if it wasn't getting recorded, I'd be having fun doing the same thing. But now I have an excuse to like sit down and talk to somebody about car nerd stuff for hour plus, you know.
That's cool.
Okay, here's a serious question about doing mobile. What do you do about going to the bathroom?
Don,
I mean,
answer please. It's different up here, I will say, because we have winter.
I mean, you gotta go, right? I mean, I'm in Texas, right? I'm in Texas, man. So there's a lot of land usually in places you can go and run off and get behind a cedar tree.
Gotcha.
But I also have a van. You know, I have a little NV200. So, I mean, if I'm in a parking lot, I intentionally carry empty water bottles because hey, you gotta go, dude. You gotta go. I mean, if I get to a bathroom, that's obviously my first choice. I mean,
sure.
I gotta go. I'm gonna go. But I mean,
right.
You know, some of them, you know, like I have some shops like they park on the street and they have another lot that's down the block, and the car's over there on the gated lot, and I'm over there in the gravel parking lot, and it's like, you know, I don't want to, you know, zip down a willy here, and then cops stroll by, and then I get popped with a ticket, or get pinned as a pedophile, right? So it's like, just go in the van. Like it's just, I have a tub of wipes, and
it lowers the professional level just a bit.
Oh yeah. You know, keep some hand sanitizer with you, and hey, you gotta go, and next time you wash your hands, you wash your hands. And it's a struggle, man, but it's real. You know.
I try very hard, you know, shop to shop at a convenient time. Like if it's a new shop,
no
you know,
shame.
You don't want to blow it up on that first time that you're there.
You're like,
that no. I reserve that.
I try to hit up the gas station, time stuff out, but I don't eat a whole lot during the day, and I guess that's another question for you. What do you guys do for lunch? But I don't eat a whole lot while I'm working, so I drink fluids though, especially when it's hot out. I mean, it's 90 degrees today, and I'm chugging water, and then I have to, you know, most places are cool with using the bathroom, but like you say, there's certain places I'd just rather not be in their shop or as little as possible. So I kind of got to try and time stuff out. And sometimes, I'm doing a little, you know, dance while I'm out there looking at a car.
You're like, why do I have to wait 10 minutes for this for?
It's funny you say. It's funny you guys say that. I kind of know this.
There's no way to
I'll team view with the car that's doing the parameter reset, and I'm sitting in the van with the AC because I'm like, it's too hot. Like, no, it's too hot. Like, no, dude. The truck is like,
it's way hot.
I kid you not, like 4 feet in front of me, but it's like, I'm just going to team view in and just sit here and scroll on Instagram. And then, when it says key off, okay, cool. I'll hop down and go key off the truck and click next.
So, and I've done that in the wintertime here. So maybe Kyle, you can relate to that, is sitting in a car that's waiting for an anti-theft. So it ain't running and it's 20 below out. It's like, okay, come on. So I'll get the long cable and get it going to my van.
Yeah. It's always the cars that don't move.
Yeah.
It's over there in the lot, in the corner.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Yeah.
So I guess both of you, if you're going to do a diagnostic on something, do you request that it's in the shop?
Preferably, I don't want it in the shop. Preferably.
And I agree with you most of the time, outside of needing a hoist for something.
Yeah.
I'm there. I'm moving. I'm going. Like I was explaining the shop, and I'm probably going to be called out for it. But I was the guy like I'm working, and you come over like, what do you need? You know, I'm a very snappy person naturally, and I don't. It's not intentional. It's just a reaction I have.
Mm-hmm.
And, with age, I've caught on to it.
Sure.
And I've controlled it much better than I used to be. But I have my moments. I have my moments a lot actually. But yeah, so like it's one of those things. It's like I don't want to cross somebody wrong on the way I come off in my approach. So yeah, I'd rather much just be alone. Just leave me in the parking lot, and it's cool. Like I don't need the battery's half dead. It is what it is. Most of them are half dead anyways. So hey, throw the jumper cables on it, and then just leave me alone, and we'll be okay. And if I need more time, I'll come holler at you. Like, we'll get it squared away.
Yeah, I've done a few diags out in like 30 below. Yeah, it's just like because the shop's full of cars and they ain't got anything. And it's like my schedule. I can't come back. I got to keep a schedule. So it's like I try to come up with a plan. Okay, like I'm doing this, and this, and stick to it. Once you get moving, though, I mean, just because I'm from Canada and I'm familiar with it. It ain't so bad, but it still sucks.
Yeah, it can depend on what you're doing and everything. But yeah, sometimes like I go to some places, they have 2 bays. That's the shop. And so for them to move something out and then move 3 cars around in the parking lot and then push this into the shop, yeah, I could be more proactive and request it ahead of time, but that ain't the way that their schedule works. Because a lot of time I can't tell them a specific time I'm going to be there. I'm like, yeah, I'll be there in the morning or the afternoon. So, hey, we just got to make it happen the way that it is. And if I need a hoist, there's occasionally times where that's the case. Because I don't want to work out my back on the ground, but I'll definitely do something outside. So I got this thing off Amazon. I've only used it once. And I don't know that it really made that big a difference. But it's because it's hot here in the summer. I don't know how to gets where you're at, Kyle, this time of year, and I'm sure it's way hotter where you are, Don. But it's like an umbrella, but it unfolds into a rectangle that's the size of a windshield, right? So you go into the car, you just go like this, and it pulls out over the windshield inside the car. And so it blocks the sun coming down into some of these cars that are baking at 1,000,000 degrees. So it was like $13 on Amazon. And I did it on one car the other day. I was like, well, it's still really hot in here, but at least the sun's not beating on me.
Yeah, it's funny because like I have my Milwaukee M18 fan, and it's like I go sit in the car. It's like I'm trying to program this key, and I'm like, I'm putting this fan right here. No shame. It's hot air, but hey, it's some airflow because I'm dripping sweat now, and it's like it feels great.
Yeah, there's sweat going onto your laptop.
I could feel it like trickling down my back, and I'm like, God damn it, it's so hot. I was like, I am charging more now.
Yeah, I can only imagine what it's like in those cars down there. Do you have any issues with your equipment? Anything getting too hot?
Melting. Yeah, it's funny you say that because I did. I was that guy. So I was still at the dealer, and I was doing mobile after hours and on the weekend, and I had 2 shops that started me out per se. And I was doing a diag on. I was a Ford F-150 at no com. I ended up having to go back on Saturday. I went Friday evening. I went back Saturday morning. Then I didn't have the van yet, and I didn't have my first mobile rig. I was working on my personal pickup, so I had everything in a pack out, right, in the Milwaukee pack outs. And so yeah, Saturday morning I load everything up from the garage, throw it in the truck, go do the job, do the diag. Cool, we figure it out. Was in a rush to come home because the wife had made plans, and I was like, yeah, I'll be home before lunch. It'll be fine. I'll get showered. I'll be ready. Like, overcommitted myself. So running late, coming home, I'm like, oh man, my wife's gonna chew my ass out. Like, this ain't gonna be good. So haul ass. I get home, and we live on some acreage, right? I got 3 acres here, and I just parked the truck next to the house. Didn't park underneath the tree. Totally forgot about my pack out in the back of the bed, right? So we leave Saturday afternoon. We go do our thing. We come back Saturday night. Completely forgot about the pack out. We leave Sunday. we ran our errands and did stuff, and we come back, and I was telling him, man, it's so freaking hot out here. We're looking at the temperature in the car. It was like 110. Uh,
Oh, geez.
yeah, and the gates opening, and I'm looking at my truck, and I'm like, oh shit. I was like, my pack out. I was like, no. And I go and look, and I had I had one U scope in the Warwick case, just completely melted. Like, I mean, like melted, dude. Like it was horrible. My dongle for one of my Altels got melted and ruined.
Jeez.
Yeah, like, man, I had some piercers from AES Wave. They all like the
Yeah.
super glue came undone, so like the little
Oh,
like push release things like
no.
popped everything out. Like everything was just a mess in there, man. I had some scope cables. I was like, I don't even know if these are good or not. They probably are, but like the glue at the banana
Jeez.
jacks and everything was just a mess, dude. I just threw a bunch of crap away. And then I learned, I was
Damn.
like, well, that was like, yeah. But when you don't know,
Yeah.
you don't know, right? And it was one of those things like that.
Gotta
Shame
learn
on
that
me.
lesson the hard way
Yeah,
sometimes.
it was a very hard lesson learned. Um,
Yeah.
and of
Yeah.
course, I had my amp clamps for the scopes in there, right? I had my high current and my low current. They got torched, like they were ruined. Absolutely got
I was gonna
swollen.
ask, did
And
anything survive?
a couple of the scope cables I kept. I don't use them
Okay.
though. They're just like spares. I keep in my they're in my toolbox here at the house just in case if my ones in the van go down
Sure.
or break or whatever. I'll try them out, but I just kind of condemn them
I
as
was wondering if
bad.
there'd be a advertisement for some piece of equipment that survived
Oh yeah,
the
no,
Texas
dude. Oh,
pack out.
yeah, dude. No, and it was it was the top Milwaukee box, is the one with like the clear lid, so you know it just like
Okay.
magnified with the sunlight. Yeah, dude, it just absolutely wrecked
Damn.
everything in there. Yeah,
Yikes.
it sucked. But hey, whatever. It is what it is. You live and learn, and it's
Yep.
money. You know, you replace it with more money.
How about the cold, Kyle? You lost any equipment to the 40 below temperatures?
No, so I don't have a work van yet. I'm still working out of the back of my
Okay.
Jetta
Okay.
wagon.
So you unload at the end of every day?
So yes, sir. I load it up every morning and take it back in every night. I got a rhythm, takes me 5 minutes.
I did that for a while out of a Buick, and once I went to a van, never again.
I know. I'm looking at vans. Um, a lot of I service a few transmission shops and body shops. I'm like, if you guys ever get like Transit Connect, 14 and up,
Hmm.
give me a shout. So, but I haven't lost anything to the cold. It's one thing I think about quite often. It does get hot in the car if I don't have if I shut the car off, close the windows, go work in a
Sure.
shop. It's out in the sun, it gets hot in there. So I'm mindful of that to kind of think, okay, what am I going to need to go in? Can I park my car in the shade? But the winter it was all right. Just kept the heat on full blast and everything was
It's
good.
funny he says that about shutting it off. I don't even turn off my van. It stays on all day, all day. It never turns off
Yeah.
till I come home. I carry two keys with me. One stays in the ignition, the other one's in my pocket because I get down and lock it, and it just stays running.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, if you're down there in the heat, you got to keep that sucker going. I When I was at the school, I'd drive my van to school so that I would teach, and I teach we start at 7:30 and we go till 2 o'clock. And so if I'd either pull it into the shop if there was room, otherwise, I'd have to go out there and start it occasionally on the really cold days because it would get too cold in there for all the stuff. And I have a thermometer on my dash so I can tell what the temperature is. And same thing in the summer. Yeah, I'll try to park it in the shade or keep the AC going or whatever. Try to keep it from getting too crazy in there. But that is one thing: is the equipment was a tough life, getting dragged around and hot and cold and sweat dripped on it and dropped and all that stuff. It's definitely you try to take the best care of it you can, but stuff happens.
What are you using for storage? Well, like before your van, I guess. Are you using packouts or?
No, it was really inconvenient. Just like some bags, and then like the Pico I'd have in its box, And
Oh,
so
yeah.
Okay.
it took me a good 20 minutes to load or unload. And I just got so sick of that. So now it's in the van. I got some shelves in there. I try to keep everything in its case, just for easy kind of storage and grabbing and stuff. I have
Yeah.
a bag that is just for like electrical diagnostics. So I have my voltmeter, my amp clamp, my test light, and all jumper leads and all that stuff, just so I can grab that if I'm doing electrical diag, and I got 90% of what I need. And then I have these two. Let's see. I don't know if I can do it over my shoulder here. Yeah, you can't see them because they're black as the couch they're sitting on. They're like these zip up cases that I use for my laptops and my scan tools. And so I have them broken down. I've got like factory ones, and then I've got aftermarket stuff, and I have them labeled. And so I can just grab a bag, and I've got everything I need. Keep my hotspot in there, and it's really, really convenient. But that's part of this, is like figuring out how you can shave some minutes off of each trip, right?
Yep.
Like you're at a shop, and boy, that 10-minute wait for that anti-theft sure seems like a really long time, because I'm like, I could be done by now. But you
You're
can
like, "I know what I
shave
need to
off.
do."
Yeah, you can shave off a minute here, a minute there, and make it quicker by just being efficient with how your stuff is organized and what you're grabbing.
IO Terminal has been great for me in GM because I have a lot of domestics down here, right? So it's like, oh, hey, we put this PCM in. I'm like, hey, you have the old one? And I was like, and they're like, oh, yeah, you do? Oh, cool. Does it talk? Let me grab that real quick. Just hop in the van and punch a couple buttons, and next thing you know, okay, here you go plug it in. Bye. Ciao. Later. You're gone in, 15, 20
Yep.
minutes.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, for sure.
No server issues
Yeah,
or
no,
no
Right.
yeah,
secret,
that.
like click the X button here, let SPS load, and then go back to the connect button.
And then, SPS crashes 20
Yeah.
times trying to get in,
Yeah.
do it the
Oh
right
Yeah.
way. Yeah.
Yeah, I do a lot of 6L80s, weekly. I do a bunch, so it's IO Terminal has been great for that, not having to mess around with TLC and trying to figure out, like, is it down? Is it not? Is it just me? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Right.
Uh,
I almost don't want to check the Facebook groups. I'm like, I'll find out very quick if it's down.
Well, it always seems to be one of them. I don't think there's a single point in time where all of the big three are working correctly. There's always a Chrysler or a Ford or a GM issue of some sort or another. And that's another thing that is a schedule killer, is you don't know which one's going to be a problem, outside of your control. Something that you have nothing to do with, and then Ford server takes 26 minutes to download a file. And
yeah, so what do you do?
I can't foresee that happening.
That's like you mentioned earlier, it's best to say like, hey, I'll be there in the afternoon. Can't give you a time because I could be tied up, on a BMW for 8 hours, or
Yeah.
you can't anticipate certain things. So
Well, and that's going back to like being in groups and networks and stuff like that. That's where maybe, hopefully, you can get that ahead of time, right? Like somebody else,
Yeah.
unfortunately, has to go through it. What was it? I think it was like a Jeep cluster. I should probably know this if I'm going to put it to use, but it was a Jeep cluster where it was hours and hours of programming to do this one. And so, yeah, now I know if I get asked that, I'm like, well, just hold on a second. This ain't going to be a quick 30-minute programming event.
So what do you do in that situation? Because I'm sure a lot of people have different opinions. You have a price for Chrysler programming, but it takes you 3 hours.
Yeah, I guess that would depend on the scenario. If I could leave my programming equipment at the shop and just let it run, I'm not terribly opposed to charging what I quoted them. Now, next time it'll be different. Like, hey, this takes this amount of time. I'm going to have to charge for this much. If I'm stuck there for 3 hours, I might, I might try to barter with the shop owner, be like, hey, here's what I quoted you, but here's what it took me. Can we meet in the middle somewhere on this? And they're usually pretty cool on stuff like that. As long as, I mean, I'm going to be honest with them, and usually they'll help me out a little bit there.
Yeah, it's just the best way. I mean, like you said, you don't know unless you've done one and you take
Right.
your loss on it. But yeah, it's just part of learning.
Hey, let me ask you something, Sean. What's
Yeah.
the hardest problem you've had to do on a car? Right? What's the one hardest programming or
Oh,
diag or whatever? All keys lost or one
good
that
Well,
just
stuff.
I will exclude intermittent problems because that would be the easy way out of that answer
yeah, yeah.
because
Oh yeah.
intermittents are
That's fair.
stupid because I could spend hours of my life and have absolutely nothing to show for it. And so I avoid those now. I just am like, sorry, if it's not doing it, I can't work it into my schedule. It's just that doesn't work. But so outside of that, um, that's a good question. I've had a flood car too, which has been very
Oof.
challenging. Um, and then there's been a couple of them where I think I was telling you about before we recorded the Toyota, where multiple people have been in and put in multiple used modules into a vehicle, and the shop doesn't know what's what, right? Those types of things where people have screwed up the car, or multiple people have screwed up the car multiple ways, or a flood car where again it's going to be multiple issues, right? There's going to be multiple things that you're fighting against. That's where it gets really, really, really tough. And some people smarter than me would probably just say no to most of those
And it's
vehicles.
knowing when
So
to say no. You know, that's the part I think is hard. When do you say no?
Yeah.
yeah,
No.
yeah, right, right. Yeah, I mean, you spend 3 hours on something, and you're like, man, how many
Yeah.
6080s because I
No. Yeah.
programmed in that amount of
Yeah.
time? And,
You gotta have, you gotta think of that stuff,
uh,
because it happens once and it happens again.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, why don't we wrap it up with this? And I mean, we could probably do a part two on this, to be totally honest. But why don't we wrap it up with this? Since you guys are a year or so roughly into what you're doing, do you have do you have anything that you would have done differently? Is there something specific you're like, yeah, if I could go back, I would have done this one thing differently starting out my business? What do you think that might be?
So I started off with a F550, right? Because I didn't know what I was gonna do. I didn't know. I was thinking the roadside service
Uh
thing,
huh.
HD. I didn't expect the auto programming. Like Isaac was telling me about all this, and like I see my buddy Tony doing it, and I'm like, man, I don't see it, man. Like I just don't see how there's that much of a need for it. And little did I know, like, right? I mean, there's a big need for it. Um, would have been to not invest. Now I got that F550. It's just sitting outside. Right, so like I got to get rid of that thing, and like
Gotcha.
diesel's
Okay.
five
Okay.
dollars a gallon right now. So trying to make my money back on that's going to
Yeah.
be a little
Yeah.
difficult now. So um,
That's a good question. I would like to think that for what it's worth, I felt like I had a decent start. And the only reason for that, I think, is because of our friend Tony, Don. I got to see like firsthand their struggle every day and what they went through, the things they bought, like that whole formula is like, okay, now you're ready for the push. What do you need? How do you prepare for that? So I felt like I had a decent grip on that, besides like, hey, this tool is back ordered 3 months, and I start my business tomorrow. And it's like I went, almost a month and a half without a Cardac, and I just had a VCM3,
Okay.
you
Nice.
know? So it's like I had something, but it's like I had bare minimum, if you could even call it that.
Hmm.
Um, so maybe being a little bit more prepared in advance, but I told myself I was going to leave in the spring, happened to leave like, before Christmas. So um, apart from that, I definitely say if I didn't have a clientele,
Hmm.
and I'd say that was the hardest hit for me, um, because I was just a tech out in the little town I live in. You know, no one no one knew of me or the service in the big city, and that's where I was going.
Hmm.
essentially, the small town dream, if you want. It was it was tough walking into shops, you know, like putting all of you on the line in front of someone, and they just say, "All right, have a nice day,"
Yeah.
and you walk out, and you're like, "Man, am I cut out for this? Like, is this really what I want to do?"
Yeah. It's a
Learning,
confidence killer to get shot down.
yeah, and if confidence wasn't one of your attributes growing up, it's even harder because you're like, what do you do?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it was tough, and being
Hmm.
a homebody, I was in a shop for many years. That wasn't something I was used to doing, so it was just learning to adapt and
Hmm.
accept, you know, just people's opinions, whether it's verbal or nonverbal about you, and um, it's just it. It's much different now that I have, clientele and shops that I can joke around with, like text and stuff like that. So confidence, just
Sure.
got that's it.
Yep. That's where it's at. Just you gotta have that confidence to go out there and do it, and know yourself well enough that like, hey, I'm gonna work hard. I'm gonna make this happen. I'm
Yep.
going to will it into existence,
Yeah.
and then
Yep.
you got to work hard and actually do it.
It's
But
fun. It's kind of scary, but wouldn't trade it, you know.
for sure. Well, hey, this is awesome, guys, and I think we should we
Right
should
on.
definitely do another one. This is cool getting to talk to you guys. I mean, even if it's just in like 6 months or so, and just see where you guys are at that point, right? You'll be a year in, Kyle, and I'll be 6 months
Oh
into
yeah,
solo, and just
that'd
kind
be
of
cool.
check in and see where everybody's
Yeah.
at. That would be fun.
Right on.
Awesome. Well, thank you for spending your time. I really
Oh,
appreciate it.
Yeah.
yeah,
Appreciate you having us, man.
yeah. This is I think it's really cool what you're doing here, and you've got a lot of
Yeah.
unique, very smart people on the podcast. It's a good community.
Yep.
That's the best part, is getting people on there smarter than me. It's not hard, so.
Okay, that's going to do it for today's episode. Another big thank you to Kyle and Don for joining me on the show this week. It was really cool getting to sit down and talk with them about their businesses and the experiences doing what we do. Pretty cool stuff. Hopefully you enjoyed that as well, and hopefully we can have those guys back on again, like I mentioned, in 6 months to a year, and kind of check up, see where everybody's at. I think that would be pretty cool. But big thank you to you as well for listening to the show, for all the feedback I've been getting about the show. Really appreciate that. Keep that coming. And if you want to be on the show, got something cool to talk about, you're passionate in this industry about something, reach out to me. I'd be happy to have you on. All right, that's going to do it. So let's all get out there and start fixing the world one car at a time.